Just last week we spoke to Alderney Baker. She is a cyclocross rider from the UK. She's currently leading the UK National Trophy, so clearly doing well, and she won the first 2 rounds in Derby and then I think South Shields. We spoke to her before she even announced her World Cup debut. She's since raced Antwerp and at time of recording is due to race in Dublin. We will see how she gets on there. But for now, sit back and enjoy learning about her story.
Hi, thank you so much for joining me. How are you this evening?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Um, yeah, just been a busy day, but that's a whole other issue. Um, yeah, I thought where we'd start is kind of the obvious. Like, how did you even find cycling and get into it? Because it looks like you've been in and involved in cycling for a little while. So yeah, what's your journey been like?
Yes, I've been doing it almost as long as I can remember now. So around about 2008, 2009, I think I started. So I can't even do the math on those years at the moment. But yeah, I started when I was about 7 or 8 myself. So it's been going since then, and it was initially a get into it because my brother, he found a bike he liked, wanted to start racing. We went to go get spares for his bike at some point, and I ended up seeing exactly the same bike in a bike shop and kind of looked at that and went, "My birthday's coming up. Could I have a bike, please?"
What was your first bike, by the way? Because I still remember the first one I bought, and I then found out that I shouldn't have bought it because it was rubbish at handling and didn't give me the confidence I needed. Um, but yeah, what was your first bike?
My first race bike, it was a little, I think it might have been a 24-inch wheel Tornadoes, a little silver and blue. Um, yeah, there are definitely some photos on it of it on Instagram since Derby. Um, but yeah, it had gear shifting on the down tube, and I wasn't strong enough to pull them at all. So Dad used to just put it in a gear for the first race of the evening, and then we'd go from there and see how I felt as to what gear I'd do the rest of the races in.
Amazing! I love that. Just pick a gear, hope it that
Yeah,
hope it will do you.
yeah,
I mean, yeah, in some ways that's meant to be good for pedaling, though, isn't it? Like, because like a lot of people talk up how good track racing is because you have only got one gear. You have to make it good enough that you can sprint and attack in, but also coast in, and then you've got to be strong to pedal all the time in whatever sort of situation and cadence you end up having to ride at.
it was good and bad. So we started racing down at Angmering on the kart circuit there. So it was there was a bit of a hill in it. There were some fast corners as well. So it was up and down at the age of about 7 or 8. It was tough just trying to get around on that, to be honest. So yeah,
That's true. Yeah, and then obviously you've since progressed. I've saw, unless I misinterpreted the picture, I saw what I believe was a photo from the Isle of Man Youth Tour, um, which I remember racing when I was youth. No, I was junior back then. Yeah, I get confused because everyone who saw me, because I was quite new on the scene, they were like, "Oh, youth B, youth A?" I was like, "I'm a junior." Like, I think I was second year junior at that point as well. Like, so I just always had a young face. And this is back when, because I'm like a few months older than the Yates brothers. Um, if that gives you context of how long ago I was racing youth tour, like I don't think you would have been a category back then. Um, yeah, you probably would have started cycling just around the same time, um, which puts years on me. But yeah, what's it like? Do you do you remember racing through the ranks as a youth, and are there any highlights that stick out for you from then?
yes, I think she said Alderney Youth Tour is probably one of the first big races that I remember doing. It was slightly unfortunate circumstances coming into it. Me and my brother were in a car accident a couple of weeks before, so we ended up going up with my dad's, and arrangements were a little bit different than we kind of had planned going through. So the accident that we were in actually destroyed both of our bikes going into it, and my brother had a bit of an injury from it. So going into that week, he couldn't race, unfortunately. But Dot, who ran the youth club, the youth tour that year, she was so lovely, and she was nice enough to lend me a bike for the race. So
Wow.
we went over, and on the Thursday, she introduced us to a girl about my age and her dad, and they set up a bike for me. It was a little bit on the big side, but they set it up for me so we could go do a recce of the stage 2 lap, which at that point, for I think we were under 12, under 10, I think, maybe one of those two. So yeah, it would have been under 10. It was 2011. So our part of the stage was actually down the hill from HQ and then back up half of it on the other side for the like square circuit as it used to be. And I remember being so upset the day before racing. I was like, it's too big, it's not going to go well, it's going to be horrible. And we went into the prologue and the promenade, and I came out of that in third, and I was like, we've still got a hilly stage tomorrow, like it's not the same at all. And after stage 2, I came out of that in second for the girls' race. I remember there was still Sam, the same age group as Ben Tullett, and I remember racing him quite a bit. We were kind of from the same neck of the woods-ish. So it was still some fast racing going through there. Even though we were 11, like obviously he's a big name, like he's always been super fast. And I remember saying when we got back to my granddad's, because he was living on the island at the time, I remember saying after the race when we were just double checking the bike over again, I was like, could you imagine if I got third in stage 2 on stage 1, second on stage 2, and then what if I won tomorrow? And everyone was like, don't get ahead of yourself, like anything could happen. And we got to the circuit, and I think I was one of only a couple of girls to stay with the boys group for that one. And I remember going to sign on the day, and my name was highlighted in green, and I was really confused because it wasn't far from where we were like set up and things. I don't remember a thing about where we were set up, but I remember coming back from sign on, going to get my dad and being like, my name's highlighted in green, have I done something wrong? So he came back over with me, and they were like, oh no, you've got points jersey to wear. And I was like, oh okay. So yeah, I came out that weekend with 2 green jerseys and a pink one after the end of the last stage. So it was probably the highlight of my early youth career. Kind of was the point that I realised that I actually love this and I want to keep doing it.
Yeah, that actually makes me think, like, are you someone who is results driven, or was it just because you were kind of, if you're doing well, you seem to enjoy it and then it kind of fulfills itself? Or yeah, like what, I guess the heart of the question is, what is success for you? Like what motivates you in cycling?
Yeah, so I just enjoy it. So this year, more than the last few, I have just enjoyed riding my bike. I don't know what's changed, but I've enjoyed it more and more. Cross for me has always been a lot more fun than racing on the road. It's track is great fun when it's team events, like team pursuit, team sprint. I had a bit of fun doing that with the Impella girls before, but we're not exactly close to any tracks, so it's a little bit hard to kind of keep going with that. cross, it's just the fact that anything can happen, and if you screw it up, it's probably your own fault. And from that, I feel like you can learn a lot more than even about yourself than on the road.
Yeah, you're right, and like I quite admire cross just because it's quite a safe version of a sport. Like if you crash, it's usually on grass or mud, and you're not really having to ride on the roads that often during a race. So external factors aren't going to be there, and that does create a slightly safer environment, especially if you're, young and coming through the scene. Um, I've got a daughter who really loves watching cycling, and if she wants to be a cyclist, like I'd probably push her towards cross more than anything because it is safe, and I know it's a field, and you can see pretty much everyone from all parts of the circuit. Like, it's just
Yeah.
it's I'd say a better environment. Um, and clearly your love for cross shines through in results. Because you won the national series last year, and
2 years ago,
yeah,
yeah.
2 years
2 years
ago.
ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Um, and then this season you're 2 from 2 in the national series. Um, how does it feel to be the national series winner first, and then we'll start talking about this year?
Yeah, so the year that I won, it was a little bit weird. There was, I'm going to be honest, it did feel like there was a couple of people missing from that season. Um, the year before, we had a couple more people there, and some people they couldn't make the season that I won just due to jobs having to move away for them after uni, after A levels, etc. So it was a little bit weird from that perspective, but the field was still super strong. Um, it was just not the same people that I was used to. Obviously, we had some under 23s come through, like Eleanor Day, who were insanely strong, and she had a really good season. We were just missing people like Abby Manley, who I've grown up racing since I was really little, and it was just weird not having her on the start line with us. And it was also a little bit weird going through the season, and I don't know what the stats are on this, but I feel like I might be the only one that's won the series without having won a race outright in the season. So yeah, it was a little bit weird, but yeah, it was a good start to the season. Ended up ill in the back half of it, and it was a bit of a struggle to get to the end of the season and secure that yellow. But yeah, it was good fun before I go.
Yeah, I don't think certainly when you look in the history books in 10, 20 years time, your name's still going to be there. There's no like asterisk that goes with it that, oh, she won, but it's a bit of a weak field that year. Like that doesn't show, even if your recollection of it may be that, it still isn't that. Like you can only beat what's there, and if that's because people are missing, then that's how it is. You're the one who was able to turn up all the time, and it's great that you got kind of just rewards for it. And then onto this year, like I actually saw your first victory at Derby this year, so that was really good to see. What was that race like for you?
So Derby this year, with it being a home race with the team putting it on, it's always really special. I've had a couple of years there where it's not been so fun for me. Some things have gone wrong. Last year was a little bit of a disaster. For example, I'm not really sure what happened, but it just nothing went to plan on the day. So this year it was a little bit more kind of calm, collected. A lot of people hadn't seen each other race yet. We'd kind of had a rough idea how people were going based on their form from the Hope series, but that's still a good 2-3 weeks, and a lot can change in that time. So it was really good to see a lot of good battles going on within the field. So myself, Zan, and Anna having a really good race, and then the group behind us as well. They seem to be having a really good battle as well. So it's it is looking good for cyclocross over here, with just so many people having really good races and it being so close.
Yeah, it's really good to see it, and like I think going into last lap it was you, Zan, and Anna were kind of. Was there a fourth rider? I can't remember anymore on that part.
Almost. They were, Eleanor and Alice were getting very close again.
Hmm,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I heard that Zan crashed in a sort of wooded section that you don't really see, and you and Anna kind of clipped away, and stayed away till the finish, and there's a 2-up sprint. Um, Going into that, were you like, I want to be in a particular position to take Anna in the sprint? Did you have any confidence in your own sprint versus Anna, or were you just kind of going, well, at least I'm guaranteed second, whatever happens here?
So for the whole of the last lap, obviously I was aware that Alice and Eleanor were getting a lot closer. And I felt a bit like I wanted to press on going through that long section, through the finish line and past the pits, even though it's windy.
Mm,
I just thought, you know what, if it hurts me, I'd rather make them push a little bit harder to get back on. Because even if they make it, they've had to spend that little bit more energy.
mm-hmm.
So being able to kind of keep a little bit of that gap was really good, because I knew that it would just mean 3 of us is better than 5 of us going into the finish.
Yeah.
And then when we came out of the woods after the switchbacks and I heard the tape snap when Zan unfortunately crashed, I kind of didn't look back from that point. It's unfortunate that it kind of did end up being just the 2 of us into the finish. It would have been nice to kind of have that 3-way into the second half of the lap. Just to know how it would have gone down, but ultimately it is what it is. And then for the last half of the race, for that last half of the lap, the one other race that I've had at Derby that I did do really well in, and I kind of learned a lot from that year, was I know that second half of my lap is better there, generally, especially when it's dry. So
We did actually have some tech issues around this point, so now's as good a time as any to remind you that if you like and subscribe, I would be forever incredibly grateful. It does help the channel and it just gives me that little endorphin shot that everyone needs. So yeah, feel free to do that, or don't. I'm not your parent or legal guardian. And with that, on with the show.
Listeners will gather that things didn't quite go to plan there, and we lost you halfway through an answer. And you were saying that the second half of your lap is kind of quicker at Derby than the first half. So how did that kind of play on you when it was the exact track? So it's now just a 2-up. What's going through your head? What's your plans and strategy?
yeah, so I really like that bit when you come off the bridge and over the hurdles at Derby. It is a really fast section. And from there, as it has been previously in other years, so I think it was a race maybe 2-3 years ago now there that I had a very similar thing with another rider. And it's pretty much a case of whoever gets into that finish straight first, if you've got any sort of sprint on you, then you can still come out ahead unless you are the worst sprinter in the world. But I mean, most cross riders, they've got a really good sprint on them. So it's generally a case of that first one out that last corner stands a really good chance. And I think that was the case for all the races that came down to a sprint over the weekend. So I knew that going into it, and I just kind of wanted to keep the pace high all the way from the hurdles and not give Anna an opportunity to come around me if I could help it, even if it meant some not so great line choices from me. But just to kind of cut off options for where she could have come round me going into that finish. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. And actually, I've got I guess an apology to make to Anna because I chatted with her after the race, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't know that like there was quite this fandom for Alderney at Derby," um, and that was me. Um, I picked someone to root for at the end in the sprint and just gave it full beans. Me and my daughter, and clearly Anna heard. Um, so sorry that I guess I played favourites. Yeah. Are you like perceptive of things when you're racing? Like, because I remember when I raced, like I'd see every detail. Like I'd see a tree and be like photographic memory like on it. And I'm like, I'm meant to be racing. I'm meant to have my head in the game, but like my head was anything but in the game. Whereas how much of like crowd noise and things like that get in when you're racing?
It depends who it is, I guess. I mean, every now and then you will take in commentary if you can hear it from where you are, just so you kind of know what's going on around you. Because, see, again, like where's Crash, I didn't know who it was that had gone down. It was just a case of, right, this is a moment, we need to go. So I had no idea who it was. So when I heard it when we came over the bridge as to who it was and that we were down to two, I was like, okay, I can play the rest of my race from there.
Hmm.
Otherwise, if I don't know people, then I tend to hear it, but it's kind of not too loud. Whereas I can pick my dad out for a mile away. I can pick my brother out if he's saying anything, if he's come to the races. Yeah, there's a few people that you can really hear, like my coach as well. If he's on the sidelines, I know there's always going to be some really useful information there. So you kind of listen out for those people that you know and not quite block out the people that you don't, but kind of tone it down a little bit so you don't kind of get ahead of yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of, I guess there is an extent of that. Like, if I hear a kid cry, I can immediately go, is that my kid that I have to pay attention to, or is it someone else's kid and I don't have to worry?
Yeah.
And that's quite a nice feeling when it's not your child. I'll tell you that much. When it's your child, like, it gets through. But then if there's a sound alike noise, like if someone's watching a video and it's got a siren and it sounds almost like your child, like my heart goes straight into fight or flight, and then it's like, oh no, I'm safe,
Yeah.
everything's fine. It's scary. But how are you finding? Because obviously, well, actually, yeah, let's go into South Shields because there you made it 2 from 2. Um, so how did that race feel, and did you feel any pressure going into it? Because like you're the series leader now, and you know, being the only stage winner, like no one else could even surpass that anyway. But is there pressure for you to perform in that scenario? Because yeah, you've got that on your back. Everyone's going to see it. It's bright. Is it yellow? I guess it's yellow. Like, it's a bright color in any case. Like, you can't hide. You know, you can't just sort of camouflage your way through a race. Like, you're there to see and to shoot at almost.
Yeah, so for me, there was absolutely no pressure put on myself, and I didn't feel like there was from anyone else. Same goes for
Mm,
Derby. At the end of Derby, again, as I said, it's a team event. They've put so much effort into putting those races on, and I've seen it over the last few years. So it was incredible to kind of get that win for everyone there. Obviously, this time at South Shields, it's different organisers, different clubs putting the race on, and it's kind of, I love the course. I've done it for the previous 2 years and it's gone well. I've had seconds there both times. I really enjoy it. I know that they can put on an incredible course there. So my main thoughts going into the race was, you know what, just have fun because
mm,
you know how good the course is and it suit it suits you where you know it suits you, even if they've put in 30 extra turns on the off-camber section, it's still a good course. So yeah,
Mhm.
there was absolutely no pressure from myself. I just wanted to enjoy it.
Nice. And how do you find like balancing cross and what I presume is a full-time job? I know we discussed when trying to set this up, but you know, there's work commitments that we both have to work around. Like, how do you manage to combine those? Does cross suit it because it's only 45 minutes plus a lap, or does that make it harder because the racing's so focused that you've got no time to mess it up, and therefore everything's got to go right, so you've got to put the extra work in. Like, yeah, I guess, how do you balance it all, basically?
Yeah, so I'm fortunate enough to work at a bike shop where I've had some incredible people around me, and
Hmm.
they've been so supportive in my racing, and they've allowed me to do 3 days a week for the last 2 years. So that first year that I won the series, it was a little bit messy. The shop was very new. I was new to the working world. I was fresh out of uni. I had no idea what was going on. And there was almost a lot of stress in that first year.
Hmm.
In the second year, because everything was so up in the air, we had a routine for a little bit. It kept changing really often. It was quite stressful. But since then, it's calmed down a lot. We've got our routines, every individual. We've recently had a manager's swap in our store. Unfortunately, we lost the first manager that I had, and she races cross as well. So I know that she knows how it feels and what it means to me. Um, but even the manager that we've got at the moment, he's so supportive in racing. He knows that for me, that's what I want to do. That's what I enjoy doing. And I do my job better when I'm racing and when I'm having fun and able to balance both of those. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, nice. So, are there any plans like in your future to go over to Belgium, you know, the heart of cyclocross, and race over there, and take on the, you know, the iconic courses? Like there's Namur, there's Zonhoven, there's many more that I've not even mentioned. Like, I always look for Koppenberg Cross every year because it's just, that climb is incredible, and just the very concept of everyone like being absolutely on their knees by the end of it because it's such a tough race. Like, there's something almost I guess humanizing about that, where athletes can sometimes seem superhuman to me. Like, seeing them absolutely on their knees is like, oh yeah, they are. Like, I can relate to that. I
Yeah.
know what that feels like. Um, so yeah, are there any ambitions to go over to Europe, or I guess more generally, what are your overall goals in cycling?
Yeah, so I mean, even in the last weeks, they've changed quite a lot. So at the start of the season, I kind of saw what the criteria was in getting out to kind of World Cups and things this year. And I kind of looked at that and I looked at my budget for the season and I was like, realistically, am I going to be able to get out to Belgium or even anywhere
Hmm.
before Christmas? And it was looking like a no. Um, so when I was having a look at my goals for the season, I was like, right, in that case, let's go for the trophies, see what we can do there. Any invites to a World Cup or anything is a bonus, and we'll try and go from there in terms of getting over to them. Because it's always going to be a struggle when you've got kind of 2-3 weeks to plan it. But yeah, I've got to say the next couple of weeks coming up, it's definitely going to be a busy period. A lot of
Hmm.
traveling coming up.
Wow. Well, we shall look forward to that. And what are, obviously, yeah, you said World Cups are something that you're hoping to do at some point. Like, yeah, what, say 20 years in the future, I think that would put you, most cyclists would have retired from, unless they're like Nick Craig, who just races everything. Um, even like Masters on a Saturday of a national trophy, and then races with the elites on the Sunday, like because he loves cycling clearly. But like most sane people will have retired from mainstream racing by then. Like if you were to look back on your career from there, what would you go? What would make you say like, oh yeah, that was successful? Like, what would you have hoped to have achieved by then?
Yeah, I'd love to be able to be competitive, and I mean, it would be amazing to get into kind of those top 20s for World Cups. Um, Even if it is a long way down the line from now, it would still be amazing. And even get to a World Champs or two, that would also be incredible. So the next couple of weeks, obviously, we've got 2 trophies coming up in 4 weeks, and there might be a couple of races in the middle as well to look forward to. Not set in stone yet, though. But yeah, that's a kind of stepping stone into making those kind of dreams becoming a reality, I guess. I mean, I'd love to be racing when I'm 40 still, and obviously we've all seen Nick do it. We've seen what he's capable of. He puts his mind on one thing in a race, and when he turns up to a senior race, you know when you've been caught by Nick, it's not quite your race over, but you know that's kind of where you're sat for the rest of the day when he catches you. And similarly, in seeing what Kate Eady and Kara Styler are doing in the senior and elite races at national trophies when they do them, it's amazing. Seeing them battle each other on a Saturday morning at the national trophies is great. Having Kate obviously as a teammate of mine, and Keris, seeing her when I do West Mids races, it's just amazing. I have so much respect for all of them. It's great to see it, and yeah, if I grow up to be anywhere near as good as them, then I'll be over the moon.
Amazing. And you kind of alluded to some races in the horizon. I don't have a cyclocross calendar memorized or up in front of me, so I can only guess. And this will only be relevant to people who really know cyclocross. But do any of the planned races involve giant ducks?
No,
Okay. So we're not talking about that series.
not
Good to
quite
know.
that series. No, I'd
But
say
an adjacent one.
kind of.
Okay, okay.
I would say probably checking in maybe a couple of weeks when we've got a few more plans set in stone, and
Okay.
I don't want to jinx anything yet. I'm
Yeah,
trying this.
well, where I guess this leads perfectly on to the next question, which is where can people find out more about you? Essentially, a social media plug, because in a couple of weeks, this episode will be out, which means your mention of a couple of weeks when your plans are made will probably coincide. So, how can people find this information out for themselves?
So I'm probably the most active on my Instagram.
Hmm.
Still not that active, but the most active on there. So it's Alderney_01 for that one. And my Twitter, I haven't used it in a while other than a repost, but that's just at Alderney Baker. Yeah.
Ah, yes. A platform that many people are kind of leaving for various reasons. I'm not bothering with that anymore. I've gone to a very um, similar platform, but it's a lot quieter and it seems gentler, so I like it there. But both your Instagram and your Twitter will be up on screen right about now, so people can see it and take a look up if they just listen to episodes. Sometimes people like to consume it just by listening. And obviously in the show notes will be links to both as well, just to look there. And yeah, all that's left for me to say is I hope everything goes well for the rest of your season and national trophy win, series overall, perhaps. Maybe even a red, white, and blue jersey to go with it would be very lovely to see. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. That was a lovely chat we had. I hope you liked it. Do feel free to check out our other videos, because we've had a lot of amazing riders from diverse realms. I believe currently all of our top 10 are from female riders, which is not something you're going to find on many other channels. So definitely do check out our back catalogue. There's so many hidden gems to find, and not so hidden gems. But definitely give it a check out if you're not doing much around December. There's certainly several hours you can kill with listening to me or Lena natter on with a professional cyclist.